Do you know how many days it rained during the flood? Do you know how many days Moses was on top of Mount Sinai? Do you know how many days Jesus went out into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan? Do you know how many years the children of Israel wandered around in the desert? 40. You see, in our American culture, when someone turns 40, everyone starts cracking jokes about how old they are. But in the Jewish culture, when someone turns 40, they reach a new level of maturity. You see, we all know that when a Jewish boy turned 12, he was considered a man. But we've got to understand on some level that no one looked at a 12-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid and treated them just like they would a man who's, say, 50. He wouldn't get the same kind of responsibilities. He wouldn't have the same kind of respect when it would come to, what do you think about this situation? Because he was young. So you have the ages of 12 to 40, a male was considered a young man. And in that time, he grew. His body would grow. His responsibilities would grow. Many times, that's when they would get married and have kids. But it was seen as a time of maturity. And the age of 40 and on was seen as a time of when a man would step into his wisdom or into his maturity. You see, the number 40 in the Jewish culture is a number of transformation. Jesus went into the wilderness, a carpenter, and came out 40 days later, the Messiah. You see, he was the Messiah before, but before his job was working with wood. And when he came out of the wilderness, his job was working with men. Moses ran into the wilderness, a murderer. And he spent 40 years taking care of sheep. And from anyone's worldly perspective, we would look at those 40 years and say, what a waste. I mean, this guy was like second in command of Egypt. He was leading armies. He was building pyramids. He was amazing. And then he went out and took care of sheep. I mean, anyone can do that. But 40 years later, God came to him and said, you're ready for your life's mission. Now get this. 40 years of maturity turned Moses from a person who was very self-confident, who believed he was ready to lead the children into a war of rebellion, to a man who said, God, I can't go. I can't even talk right. You see, in Moses' perspective, he was not ready. But in God's perspective, he had finally matured. He would not come to the Red Sea and say, all right, guys, I got this. I'll figure a way out. He would come to the Red Sea and say, whoa, God, I need your help. See, that's maturity. Paul says, be ye perfect, just like your Father in heaven is perfect. And in my American, perfectionist, goal-oriented, results-oriented perspective, when I read that verse, I just feel all this pressure that I've got to be perfect. That means I can't say any bad words. I can't look at any bad thing. I can't even have a bad attitude. I've got to be amazing. I've got to just speak life into my daughter and wife. I've got to eat all the right food, and I've got to be super patient, and I've got to have tons of peace in this corona world, and I've just got to be amazing all the time. And God says, no, 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 no. Because if you look at that Greek word for perfect, it means mature. So what Paul is really saying, he's like, I want you to grow up in your Father and start to become like him. He's saying, don't focus on your track record, focus on your Father. Focus on God. Look up, right? God's got this, right? That's what I've been trying to say this whole time. And here's the crazy thing, and this is in every kung fu movie and every good story where there's a mentor and a disciple. It always starts where the young guy thinks he's ready before he is. And then when he's finally ready and the Jedi master or the kung fu master says, you are ready, they're always like, no, 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 I'm not ready anymore. There's so much I need to learn. So where are you on this? That's a silly question. You have no idea where you are on this maturity level. We don't know where we are. We just know we're not where we want to be. And one day God's going to look at you and say, all right, it's ready, let's go. And you're going to say, I'm not ready. I can't do this. And God will say, nope, it's been 40 days. You have matured to the point, here's a job, go do it. Go talk to that person. Go pray with that girl. Go speak at this thing. Start writing that book. Begin this business. Do this thing that I've put on your heart to do. Today's day 40. This is the 40th little video that I've done. And the night before I started, my wife said, Grant, it's time. It's time. You just got to start sharing what God's putting in your heart. It's time. And I was like, I don't think it's time. I'm not ready. I have nothing important to say. I can't do this. And she was like, no, it's time. And I felt the Holy Spirit in my heart say, she is speaking for me right now. It's time. It's time for you. I don't know what the thing is that the Spirit is putting on your heart, but it's time. You've had 40 days. We've all had 40 days of quarantine, 40 days of life being different, 40 days of learning lessons we did not think we would have to learn, 40 days. And you have not been perfect in these 40 days. You have messed up in these 40 days, and that's okay. But you've got 40 days, and you have changed, and you have grown, and even if you don't feel like you have, it's different. And now God is calling you into something. And here's the key to whatever that something is. You've got to walk with Him. You've got to look up. You've got to learn that you can't control everything. But you got to trust. I just heard a sermon and it said, no longer, there's a verse in the Bible where it says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And get this, conform is the way the world works. And the pastor had this comment, and it's so brilliant, I wanted to share it with you. Conform is how the world works. It is an outward in transformation. You look around and say, oh, this is what everyone's doing. I need to be like them. I need to conform. Transform is an inward thing. It starts in your heart, and it totally changes how you are on the outside. So God says, I don't want you to look around and be like everyone else. I want you to look up and let me change you from the inside. 40 days. It's a time of transformation. It's a time of maturity. It's a time to let God work on you. And so, friend, I don't know how many more days we're going to do this, but welcome to day 40. We have begun the transformation. We are becoming more mature. Because I believe Jesus is coming back super soon. And that's not a scary thing. That's an exciting thing. But before He comes back, He needs a group of people who are willing to step up and share the gospel, share how good God is, share that He loves you no matter what. Because that's what this world needs to hear. The economy is not giving them the security they want. Their health isn't giving them the security that they want. Politics isn't giving them the security that they want. People are turning to porn and to alcohol and to binging Netflix shows and to stress because they don't know how to cope. But you do. You know that Jesus has peace that passes all understanding. And it's time for you to step up and start sharing. You're ready. You're mature. And God will be with you every single step of the way. God bless.